All right, good evening. Oh, what is it?
No, all set.
All good? All right. Good evening, all. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of February 16th, 2021, which of course we're holding via webinar again. Before we start, I have a few preamble statements, a couple of housekeeping items before we get going. This meeting is being recorded by WestfordCAT. We respectfully ask that everybody mute their computer microphones and phones when they're not in use to avoid unnecessary noise during the meeting. This is an open meeting, so for all the panelists that have access to the chat panel, I would like to remind you to not use that function to discuss any of the content of the meeting, but to ask a question or any technical issues with the video conferencing platform, and please direct them to the organizers. All votes will be done by roll call. All attendees are muted upon arrival into the meeting, again, to reduce unnecessary sounds. If an attendee wishes to contribute a question or comment, they may virtually raise their hand via the platform's control panel, and the chair or staff will recognize and unmute the participant where they can voice their concerns, similar to approaching the mic at a live meeting. Or individuals may submit questions and comments to the chair and staff by utilizing the questions function. These will be compiled and included into the hearing at the appropriate portion. And due to limitations of the platform, attendees that are accessing the meeting via the telephone number at the bottom of the agenda will only be able to listen to the proceedings. It will not be able to contribute. Please access the video conference via the link on the agenda, even if you don't have a webcam to participate. So joining us tonight, we have five planning board members tonight, Matt and Jeff from staff, and Paul Starrett from our town engineer. So is there anything from open forum? Go to staff first.
No, Mr. Chair.
Nothing from engineering right now.
All right, great. Anything from the board? Dylan?
We did, Community Preservation Committee met last Wednesday for the first of 3 meetings to review the applications for use of those funds this year. The next meeting is next Wednesday. What is that, the 23rd, I believe? Sorry, it's next Tuesday, the 23rd, and then the final meeting will be Tuesday, March 2nd. So the community is invited to attend and listen to where part of your tax dollars can go to fund community relevant initiatives around town.
Excellent, thank you. Kate? Nothing, Bob? Mike? I have nothing for open forum, which brings us to our first public hearing item, which is PB 2037, a site plan review and a WARPOD stormwater management permit for 478 Groton Road. The applicant has requested postponement without discussion to the March 1st meeting. Is there a motion to continue without discussion to March 1st?
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of, say aye. Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, that brings us to our general business items. As I mentioned, we'd like to, for scheduling purposes, take these orders in reverse, or take these 2 items in reverse order. So if we can start with the second item, item B under general business, a discussion and possible recommendation of use of sidewalk gift fund for sidewalk design on Plain Road, from Nutting Road to the Grassy Pond parking lot, as requested by the Pedestrian Safety Committee. So I'll go to staff on this one to start.
Mr. Chair, this is a request from Chris Barrett, Pedestrian Safety Committee, and I think he should be on if he wants to present his case.
Yes, he is.
Great. Yep, Chris, you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening. Excuse me. Thank you for having me on this evening. So the Plain Road sidewalk has long been on the pedestrian safety list of top priorities for the town. You may recall that we did a project a few years back where we extended the sidewalk on Plain Road from Nabnasset down to Nutting Road. This is to further extend the sidewalk as far as down as Grassy Pond. It has been, this request has been before the select board a couple times. And this year we brought it forward to Capital as our top recommendation for funding. We also had the opportunity to speak to the select board in conjunction with the Healthy Westford Committee last month to present the core Westford Walkway concept. This concept plan is an attempt to build a interconnected series of paths, sidewalks, trails to allow us to get from one end of Westford to the other in a safe manner for pedestrians. And as part of that initiative, the Plain Road features prominently as the core Westford Walkway will come down from the hopefully to be built soon sidewalk along Oak Hill and then make a right onto Plain Road and carry on across Plain Road. So as part of the presentation to the select board last month, we also asked them to once again reaffirm their support for the sidewalk extension on Plain Road, which they did pending available funding. So with that in mind, the Capital Planning Committee did move forward with keeping the design, the request for funding for the design of the Plain Road extension in the capital plan for this year. The idea at this point is to use the funds from the sidewalk gift account to pay for that design work. And so I'm here this evening to ask for your support in that request.
Great, thank you. I guess I'll go to the board unless Jeff, do you or Matt have anything to add from staff?
No, just that it doesn't require your approval, and this board is not required to act, but the select board typically looks for a non-binding recommendation from the planning board before making their final decision on such requests from the sidewalk gift fund.
All right, good. All right, I guess I have one question, then we'll go to the board. Do we know what the balance is in the sidewalk gift fund?
It's approximately 81,000, I believe.
Correct, $81,304 approximately.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, cool. I'll go to the board. Dylan.
I mean, other than to comment that, you know, this would be, it looks like the better part, I mean, basically all of the balance of the sidewalk gift fund. That was going to be my only comment, but certainly I have no concerns if, you know, I think the Pedestrian Safety Committee is far closer to the topic of, you know, what the priorities are for sidewalks around town. So if this is their recommendation and they're simply looking for us to make a recommendation to the select board, I'm certainly in favor.
Great. Kate.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about stripping the sidewalk fund because we have used it for smaller things like for Route 110, and I know we've used it for helping for other designs and such. So I don't know, 80 grand for the design just seems like an awful lot. I was reading the proposal and I just question whether or not some of the things like drainage design, it made it sound as modifications to infrastructure. I assume this is just if the sidewalk has to go over something dealing with drainage, and that it's not that we're going to be tying this sidewalk design in with other town needs, like putting in sewer lines or water lines. We don't have sewer, but storm drains or anything like that. Because if it were going to be tied with other needs of the town, then I would suggest that capital planning should find some other money to help out. I know I just want to know why we're doing it, hiring an outside firm to do it this time, because I know Paul, I thought engineering has done it for the Carlisle Road, unless I'm mistaken, and also the previous one on Plain Road. And if we're going with an outside contractor, it sounds as though you guys are just super swamped this year, and that's why you're looking for outside help. Things like environmental notification form, can we save money by some of the things that they want to do if the town takes it on, such as the ENF or the public outreach and such? I'd like to hear from engineering as to why it was done this way. That's all. I'm just concerned about the price. Over.
So
All right,
Mr.
thanks.
Chair, I can try. There was a lot, and you can help me fill in the blanks, Kate. I think the first one was about drainage. I can tell you that once we put a sidewalk on the edge of a road, we install a vertical granite curb. That vertical granite curb may look like a vertical granite curb to you, but to an engineer, it looks like a drain pipe, as it actually collects the storm water. And now that we've prevented it from going off the side of the road in order to protect our pedestrians, we have to do something with it. So there is a lot of design consideration put into the drainage aspect of it. Ian, the environmental impact, the reports that we have to do, that's all qualified. And I think your other question was about, could we save money? If we designed it in-house, that would be a lot more expensive because we'd have to hire another engineer on staff, which we're not allowed to do right now with a hiring freeze. We did the first part of Plain Road because at the time we were between Main Street, Boston Road, and the Moore, Oak Hill, and Plain Road projects. So we had some staff time, which is considerable. It's about $80,000 worth of time, actually. So that wasn't an option for us to offer that service in-house. Did that cover everything, Kate? Did I miss anything?
No, so you're saying that if you were to do it, it would basically be about the same price.
Well, it would be the same
But
hours.
you don't,
Right.
I mean, yeah, hours wise, if you had the time, it would take that amount of time, but because you can't hire any more staff,
Right.
you have to go
Right.
out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Jeremy and I, entering and opening bids for an $8 million project tomorrow and going into what will be our busiest summer ever, we just don't have the time to go out and do a survey and do the drainage designs. We'll help out. And I should point out that we don't just write a check for $80,000 to the design consultant. If they don't do something, they don't get paid for it. We don't often have contracts that, in this case, especially because they're already going to be coming in under their normal profit margin because they no longer offer the survey services, which they did when they wrote the proposal. They don't do that now, so they're going to have a sub-consultant do it. But we've gone through this and everything is right. There's no. And they didn't realize, I should mention, that this budget was going to be tied to our sidewalk gift account. So they didn't, go online and find out what our sidewalk gift account was a year ago when that wasn't even a consideration and target their proposal that way. That only happened after the fact.
Okay. All right.
Anything else, Kate?
No,
Bob?
no.
Okay, thanks. Kate, Bob?
Yeah, so I actually have a bunch of comments. First and foremost, I think it's a real positive in terms of the connection it provides, because it really serves a lot of residents of Nabnasset to at least get them down to Grassy Pond. But that aside, I wanted to understand some of the numbers here. First off, the 80,000 only is for design and engineering, correct? That's not the cost of construction.
Oh, no, construction will be considerably more, but we don't know that yet until we do the design, until we determine if part of this during the project development, we determine that part of this is going to be a path behind some of the homes. If that eventually becomes the ultimate design through the project development process, that will lower construction costs, we anticipate. But yes, the design, survey, design, permitting, and right up to bid packages.
Okay, and that gets to my second part, and I think you already addressed some of this, Paul, with the discussion on the stormwater management aspect of this project. I think where this stops at Villanova, it's on a pretty significant downhill run on Plain Road. And I know that's the break point between phase 1 and phase 2. I did want to understand the efficiencies or inefficiencies of breaking up this project. I realize 80,000 is all we have right now, and that gets us to the end of that demarcation, roughly at Villanova. But with respect to stormwater management, are you going to have to take some temporary measures here to deal with that stormwater drainage down that hill that you otherwise would not have to do if you did the whole segment of phase 1 and phase 2 together?
Well, I think I understand the question. We cannot create a drainage problem as a result of our design. So whatever we install, the runoff from that added pavement and curb will be accounted for in our calculations for stormwater runoff. Is there efficiency in doing it all together as one project? Well, yeah, absolutely. But we're not in a situation to, get 120. I believe $120,000 for the proposal to do the whole thing. So they don't have to do 2 bid packages. We don't have to do all the other work that goes into. They don't have to do, the survey doesn't have to mobilize twice. Just like you would imagine, there are efficiencies, but in this case, and Chris can speak to this himself, the getting to Grassy Pond is a huge important destination, whereas getting the rest of the phase completed, the second phase of this down to the depot, that's more connected with the core of Westford route, and that doesn't exist yet. But Chris can correct me on that if the Pedestrian Safety Committee thinks differently.
Question. So the phase 1 and phase 2, is that for the design or for the construction?
I am abusing the word phase here pretty badly, because technically the first phase was what we completed a couple of years ago. This would be a second phase. A third phase would connect us from Grassy Pond down to the river, down to Stony Brook. But they each come in 2 phases. One being, we always design projects first, because then we have a very reliable construction estimate for which we can then shop around for construction funding.
Yeah, so I use those terms phase 1, phase 2, Paul, because that's what's on tech's layout here in our package tonight. I realize phase 1 really was the earlier piece.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
But
Carol,
I'm ultimately looking at how important it is to get down to the depot, because then you have that connectivity of Nabnasset, not only to Grassy Pond, but ultimately to East Boston Camp's parcel. And I think that is ultimately.
Well, just understand that through the trail network, you do connect to East Boston Camps for able-bodied pedestrians right now, if you get to Grassy Pond, because you can go from Grassy Pond through the woods, over the river and through the woods to, Stony Brook Conservation Area in East Boston Camps.
Okay, yeah,
So that's why it's such a critical destination, I think, in the minds of the Pedestrian Safety Committee, because you're pulling all those networks and neighborhoods and existing sidewalks and sidewalks to come to a very important walking destination.
yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a good project. I think it helps a lot of residents. And I don't know if you have calculations, but it might be one of the projects that provides the most access for the shortest distance of sidewalk. So,
I'd say that off the back of a napkin, yeah.
yeah, so, okay, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Bob. Chris, you had your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to respond real briefly as to why we decided to break the project into two phases. Our original idea was to run it directly from where the sidewalk ends today at Nutting and bring it down all the way to the intersection of the railroad tracks and depot. But the reality was that we knew that budgets were going to be tight and that it might be more manageable for us to find funding if we broke it into two, despite the fact that we are losing some efficiencies of scale. And we were also very interested, I think Paul alluded to this earlier, about the potential of trying to site some of the walkway off the road and potentially getting it through and putting it through the conservation area. And we knew that that was going to, potentially be a little tricky to do. We haven't done that before as a community. So rather than trying to make it a little bit more of a complex project, we said, all right, let's break into phases, see if we can tackle this one phase, because we're at least getting ourselves to a destination at this point. We would never, if Grassy Pond wasn't there, we wouldn't have stopped it there. We just knew that that would get us to at least to a conservation area that was in high demand for the area residents to be able to walk to. So our hope is that if we receive the funding, complete the design, the next question really is, well, where are we going to come up with money for construction? And again, historically, we've had better success with, projects that are in the sub $500,000 range than a project that may be in more towards the $1 million range, which this project might fall into if we did it as one whole project. It would be probably closer to that $800,000, $1 million range to find funding for. So if this falls, in that $500,000 range, it then gets us a little bit more closer to, maybe be able to leverage some funding from Complete Streets. The town was successful in getting $400,000 from Complete Streets back in 2016. It's become a very, very competitive program since then. We've now, been in the queue for many years. We're hoping that, depending on a lot of different factors, how much money the state gets from the federal government and how much money of that it decides to put into Complete Streets, that perhaps we will be back at the top of the queue. And this will be a great project to submit to Complete Streets because of its improving connectivity to a school, as well as a key recreational resource. So we look at having shovel-ready projects like this in the back of our mind so that we have those opportunities to jump on grants when they come available. We recently took advantage of a grant this fall for a pedestrian safety project that was completed over at the Abbott School. And we wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't have a design ready to go, because sometimes these grant opportunities require very, very quick turnaround. And we were very lucky that we had one that met the criteria, and we won $100,000+ for that project. So that was a great opportunity for us.
And thank you, Chris. That's exactly right. We also have some Newport mitigation opportunities to consider for this particular project. We're still working out the nuts and bolts of that on smaller projects, but this would be a good candidate. But Chris is absolutely correct to say that having these projects shovel ready through the design stage and permitting stage in particular is very helpful for when those grant opportunities or capital becomes available.
Great, thank you. I think it helps clarify, Chris and Paul, why it stops where it does, and it just so happens that it's $80,000, and that's about the balance in the sidewalk gift fund. That was kind of my thought, but it's really driven by the access to grassy ponds. That makes sense. Mike, any questions, comments?
Simple comments. I think at one point, Paul had said during the presentation for Oak Hill Road that this will be the longest contiguous sidewalk coming down from Russell's Way up Oak Hill Road, down Plain Road, just continuing on. And I think that's a great thing. Also, for the folks who live on Villanova, getting to New Nav for the school. So I'm fully in support of this. I know it's going to drain the account, but I have a feeling that there are going to be some other money coming back into that account at some point anyway. So I would be all for it, and I would recommend that we as a board vote to approve or vote to recommend this to the select board as a good project.
Great. Yeah, I think you answered my questions in terms of the budget between Chris and Paul as well. Any concerns with the board in terms, from making a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to proceed? Kate, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just being really dense here tonight. So it's $80,000, and that's to do all the design work per the bid from Nutting Road down to the entrance to Stony Brook Conservation Area. Is my understanding?
No,
No, it's Nutting Road to the entrance to Grassy Pond, which it shows as phase one improvements on the map. It's the red line from, the top right.
close to Villanova. Close to Villanova.
Then it really seems like an awful lot of money. If we're not, I could see if they were doing the design work from Nutting Road down to the railroad tracks with the intent that the construction project would be split into two parts, a phase one and a phase two. I don't know. I had thought that this was to do everything, not just half of it. And I do have heartburn then.
And Paul, so we asked Paul, and it seems like it doesn't seem exorbitant for the design work that's going into this for that stretch of the project, right, Paul?
No, the Pedestrian Safety Committee asked the same question earlier. And I did sit down I conferenced with the design team at TEC, to see if there was any room in their price, knowing that this was going to be a burden and I reviewed over the steps in the proposal to see if there was anything built in. They've really cut it razor thin, and the big issue is that they're gonna have to get it surveyed by a sub-consultant. When they prepared this bid, some time ago, what's the date on the proposal? It's
2019.
Yeah, it's a couple of years old. They actually had a survey department, but they were willing to honor their price, the proposal. But yeah, 120 to go all the way to the depot, and 680 to get to Grassy Pond.
But that's also the part that you don't know. Are you going to go down Plain Road, or are you going to go behind are they going to do a lot of work and then somebody's going to say, we've changed our mind, we want to go behind all the houses?
It's happened on just about every project I've done in Westford. It happened on Main Street. It happened it's still happening on Carlisle Road. It's just a factor we have to build into, Westford projects.
Okay.
Does that help, Kate? Help with the heartburn?
No, the heartburn's still there, but I appreciate. It's definitely a worthwhile project. I know it's been on the Pedestrian Safety Committee's top list for a long time, since I was on it before, and I appreciate that engineering is strapped. They have a lot of projects going on in the works this year. So it is what it is.
All right. Jeff, do you need any, do we need an official vote, or is, it sounds like, Mike made kind of proposed a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Do we need an informal vote on that?
We would be looking for a vote, Mr. Chair.
All right. Is there then a motion to make Mike's motion?
A motion to recommend use of the sidewalk gift fund for sidewalk design between Nutting Road to the Grassy Pond parking lot in the amount of $80,000.
Second.
All right, good. Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, then all those in favor, say aye. Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Nay.
Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I say aye.
Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support and your time this evening.
All right, good luck. Love to see you get
Thank you.
done.
Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Paul.
Paul.
All right, so that brings us to our first general business item, PB 2103, a request to authorize planning staff to administratively approve a change in use at 7 Littleton Road, Rough House Dog Care. So I have a comment before we start. I will say that my dog is a client of Rough House, so if anybody has any issues with me participating, I'm happy to recuse myself.
He's not only the planning board chairman, he's also a client.
My question, Darren, is it a well-behaved dog or does it require counseling?
Much better behaved now since she's been going there, so
Oh, there you go.
happy to recuse if anybody has an issue, so.
No
right.
issue.
All right, so is the applicant here?
Yes.
All right, I guess we can, Jeff, unless you want to start with staff, do you want to go right to the applicant?
I think we can go straight to the applicant, and then if there's any questions, I'm happy to check.
Great. All right, great. Mr. Bonacorsi?
Yes.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, good. You want to give us an overview of your plan? So we all read it. We see what you want to do. I think we all have some questions about kind of the scope of it and that kind of thing. So
Sure.
unless you want to give us kind of a quick overview, we can go right to this. Go right to the board.
Sure. It's actually an existing room that's being used for storage right now. It's about 300 square feet, and it's right at the entrance when you come into the main entrance. So there's a door going right into it. And it would just be mostly for the existing clientele. I'm not looking to, have a whole new signage and vet, having people come there. Just be an existing space for mostly the existing clients for minor procedures too. It wouldn't be any emergency services. I would make that very clear in any, even social platforms or anything like that. Just minor checkups, shots, like a torn nail or something is a minor procedure, something of that nature. That's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. I guess if we don't have anything from staff to add, I'll go right to the board.
Okay.
All right. So Jeff, anything from staff before I go to the board?
No, I think we just added a couple of things to the package, just an aerial map and the assessor's property record card. We did have some good conversations with the applicant, who did indicate it's his opinion that he does not believe that this proposal would result in any meaningful change in terms of flow of traffic. In some cases, it might actually provide a very minor decrease depending on the customers, and if they sometimes leave the site and come back because of appointments off-site that he might be willing to offer on-site now. So that was one of our first questions, and I think he satisfactorily addressed that, but we obviously defer to the board.
Great, thanks. I'll go to the board. I'll start with Dylan.
So I really only had one question which Bob sort of addressed, I think, in his back and forth in that got added to the packet, and that was about signage. But it seems like, from what I'm gathering, the signage that you're going to have would just be on the building itself. There's not going to be any signage added to the entryway into the parking lot, and there's nothing that's going to be necessarily broadcasting that vet services are available.
Correct. It would just be, as you've seen in the packet, the pictures, it would just be on the front of the building. I wouldn't even put it at the end, where at the end of Littleton Road, there's a sign, you know, with the directory. I wouldn't put anything on there. It just says Rough House Dog Daycare, and anything that would have it on social platform, Facebook. We have a very popular Facebook page. People like to check on their pups all day. But even on that, I would make it very specifically clear that it is, you know, a vet clinic. There will be no emergency services or anything like that. I would never want to misrepresent that. Over the years of working there, when things do happen, we always just take any dog in an emergency situation, usually to the Westford Emergency Hospital up the street.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense. And that was really my only question, Darren.
Okay, cool. Kate?
No, in general, I don't have any problems. I think the parking and the way that the owner described it is fine, that it's not really something additional. I was just confused, vet services, but these are services that will be done by a technician, not by a veterinarian, correct?
Well, a vet will be doing, you know, everything. It's, you know, just minor checkups, as I said, wellness checkups, shots. The only procedures that, if you want to call it a procedure, like say something minor, like a torn toenail, maybe like a stitch or two, but nothing beyond that. So nothing invasive or requiring a dog to stay.
Alrighty. I was just curious if it was a vet or I know trained technicians can do a lot of things like shots. No, I don't have any other concerns.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Kate. Bob?
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I don't have any concerns about it, but my concern really is what we put into the record. Typically with this kind of an application is a site plan review, and that doesn't really, I don't think we really care about seeing the internal layout of the facility. That's an added benefit, but usually it's a site plan that kind of shows the parking that's allocated to it, and the location access to the facility. And my only concern here is setting precedent. You know, we get called out because we're tough on some of the tougher applicants. And I just want to make sure we have the right materials in the folder, in the file, in case something ever happened to that facility. It may not even be just for a vet clinic, but the whole facility. You know, the first thing they're going to look at are some of these applications. And this application doesn't have all of the usual content that you might see associated with this kind of request. And that was really the nature, Steve, of my comments. It wasn't with how you thought through what you're doing here. It's what was in the package.
Sure.
Typically, as I say, we're really concerned about the externals. You know, the sign, which we've addressed, and as well as the parking, and also any kind of data to support the parking numbers. And I guess I'm going to turn to town staff to make sure that we're all in agreement that the flow doesn't change because of this use.
Right.
My comments.
Yeah, and you know, maybe to explain that a little better per se is, so when a client brings their dog in for daycare, they would already have, you know, they could schedule a wellness visit. So, you know, they drop their dog off at 7 in the morning, and whatever time during the day, the staff takes the dog into the vet, and the vet does the treatment, the shot, whatever, and the dog would go back into the daycare population, and the client would pick up their dog as usual on their exit time. So, it actually cuts down a lot of traffic instead of having people out bringing their dogs in, as a typical vet hospital, especially in this day and age where even my own vet that I go to now, you're not allowed to go into the building. They have to have the vet techs come out, take the dog, bring it in, you wait, and there's typically 8 or 9 cars at a time just waiting, and it's a constant flow. So we wouldn't, luckily, I know it is a bit of a different scenario, luckily, but we wouldn't have that issue.
Okay. So you're not planning to take additional customers just for a vet visit there? It's only vet clinic services for roughhouse customers that are
Yes.
part of the play
Yeah,
area.
we're not looking to go out and get outside dogs at all. We shouldn't even need to do that. So it's more of a service just for everybody. I mean, just like anything, people will sometimes come in to buy dog food at our store that don't go there. It's very rare, maybe 1 or 2 people. But yeah, it's definitely for our existing clientele.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, any changes to the signage, the applicant would have to comply with any sign permit requirements. And additionally, we would fully anticipate if the board were supportive of this request, you typically impose a standard condition, giving the building commissioner some discretion in case there are some unforeseen issues arising relative to parking and circulation. If the commissioner determines there to be a problem, we usually have a provision that the applicant work with them to address, and if it can't be done to the commissioner's satisfaction, then the applicant would have to return to the board.
Right. And that could be as part of the, authorization for administrative review, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Mike, anything from your side, from you?
Nope, I'm all for it.
All right, great. My only question, Steve, would be if you can define the services that'll be performed there. Kind of to Bob's point, so, that, if you guys start doing surgeries or something in a year or two, and on the record, it says, that we're going to be doing veterinary clinic type services, for example, maybe stitches or a torn toenail or shots, that kind of thing. That way it's on record as part of the administrative review as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have a problem with that. And, the vet that would be coming in, she's actually pretty local. She works down in the Neshoba vet, I believe she had, yeah, we've discussed it, and, we're not looking to even, that's not in our plan. I mean, you never know, but of course we would follow the due process or whatever. But yeah, if that's in the language, that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, and then can staff make sure that that gets just added to the record?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, and if you would even like, we're happy to let you peruse a draft or some other designee before we finalize it, if you want to make sure the intent is satisfied.
Yeah, don't hold it up, but if it's, we'll just like to see a copy of it at the next meeting. It would be great, probably in the next packet.
Okay.
Great. All right.
So I guess in the interest of declaration, now that he's declared that, I'm a patient of Neshoba vet, so I don't know if that's an issue either.
Bob, you see a vet?
I have 3 little ones. I'm about to have more.
Oh, good stuff. All right.
Thank
So
you.
anything else from staff or the board or from the applicant?
Nope.
We would just be looking for a vote from the board to authorize the administrative review and approval with conditions as suggested here tonight.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
As a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I say aye. All right. Good luck.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So that brings us to correspondence, reports, and updates. I don't think we have any for tonight.
We had one.
Oh, you're right, actually.
But I don't think it applies to us, does it?
That was my question. Does this apply to us?
I don't believe that in fact it does. It's a bit of a quirk. So normally you folks would be receiving certain notifications. This is a bit unusual because it's talking about decreasing a level of service as opposed to an increase. So I thought this was merely informative for the board's review. We're not looking for any action.
Yeah. It always brings up one question I have is, how do you assess the level of use of the MBTA by our residents? Because they have to travel quite a distance to even take advantage of that service. So,
I don't think it's really specifically targeting Westford. The reason that you receive this, it's more of a regional thing, and you're just one of those folks that get notifications. So
yeah.
Yeah, the downside of this is, to reduce the staff and the service is one thing, but to restore it again is going to take a lot more effort because they'll have to obviously staff up again and get the equipment back together. So it's a lot quicker to shut it down, slow it down than to pick it back up again, if we get to that point again.
Yep.
So, all right, anything else, Jeff, from staff or Matt
nothing for me.
on the board?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor, Dylan,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
I say aye. All right, good night, all.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
So is this
Good night.
Dylan's
Have a
recipe sharing time now?
What's that?
My wife made a fantastic chocolate cake the other night. I'll give you the recipe. It's worth doing.